Good evening. This is May, and May is National Mental Health Awareness Month. We have a wonderful guest with us today in celebrating May as National Mental Health Awareness Month. And we're going to learn about another celebration and acknowledgement during the month of May that I just learned about. So today, joining me is attorney Sallia R. Wilkins, who is a 3-year attorney in her third year of practicing law. And we're going to hear from her and why mental health and wellness is important to her, and more specifically, severe mental illness. I feel that severe mental illness is often drowned in the discussion of the big global ocean, if you will, of mental health in that space. Severe mental illness is not always talked about. It's something I think is scares people. And I think the images that we see in the media, or maybe even out in any street USA, are images that make us uncomfortable because we don't understand. So, in this conversation today, I hope that you will hear the passion from both of us, and more importantly, our desire to help other people understand, to have real information, true information about mental health and severe mental illness specifically. I also want to acknowledge that May 25th is World Schizophrenia Day. So there's a lot of celebrations in May. Actually, May 24th. May 24th is World Schizophrenia Day. So when you hear this message as we go live for Wednesday, you will know that Wednesday before or the Saturday before was World Schizophrenia Day, and overall May being National Mental Health Awareness Month. And so, Lee, I want to bring you in now and talk about another celebration for May. It seems that you are a strong advocate for it and have spoken passionately about it before. So tell us a little bit more about why May is significant.
Thank you, Corey. Thank you for having me on here with you and providing a safe space for me to dive into some strong and personal topics. For me, May is also National Foster Care Awareness Month. And I am a product of the foster care system here in Los Angeles County. I was immediately put into the system from birth after my mother had me. And interesting story, she is also someone who's inflicted with severe mental illness. And that's another reason why May is also important to me. I really do advocate for mental illness and just finding real solutions that can really help and assist and advocate for families that need help. Um, she suffers from paranoid schizophrenia, and I have seen that, witnessed that, been around it my whole entire life. Um, so she was never able to have custody of me and my sisters and traditionally take care of us. She was in and out of institutions. She was in and out of prison. She was self medicating. She suffered from drug substance abuse and stuff. She was addicted to it, and there was nothing that could quite get her to let go of that. So
Mhm.
um, I was in the system until I emancipated at 18 and went off to college. So yeah, I know a lot of times we see mental illness and we focus a lot on the actual people and patients that are suffering from it. And there's really no light shed on the caregivers and caretakers and the families and loved ones that it really, really impacts. And I was talking to someone yesterday. I said, you know what? Thinking about my journey with dealing with loved ones who had mental illness, it was me most of the time. That was always emotional or
Mhm.
frustrated, crying. They could not care less because of the state of mind that they're in. They're not there. They're not lucid. So yeah, it's been a journey. It's been a journey. Unfortunately, as I I'll say I was the caretaker of my younger sister, and unfortunately, when she went off to college, she ended up being diagnosed with severe mental illness, schizoaffective disorder, bipolar type. And I know studies have said it can be inherited or you can get it from a parent, but I think it skipped me, and my little sister ended up being inflicted with it. And so from there, my uphill battle started, and I had to really fight a system that is in
Mhm.
place, that's outdated, and has no true intentions on helping um, marginalized communities really advocate and get their loved ones the help they need. So it started there for me. It was a bit different from my mom because when I was born, I wasn't aware of
Mhm.
mental illness. I just saw her talking crazy, talking to herself, uh, always having violent episodes, or um, really just off, roaming around the streets. And I knew that we could never live with her or be around her too long. So I remember that, and I think it became more of a responsibility. And she was older, she was already her own woman. She was grown, obviously, but it became more of a responsibility for me to fight and advocate when it inflicted my little sister. And that was when I really saw the system for what it was in present day. Because I can only imagine what it was like for my mom and when my grandmother was trying to get help for her. But today, it's been an uphill battle, like an uphill battle. So
Yeah, it's very unfortunate. It just complicated on so many levels. And just hearing your story, I think about some people that I follow now who live with schizophrenia. And just as a layperson, I'm not, a medical professional or a mental health professional. I have lived experience that creates my expertise in this space. And I'm a lawyer.
right.
So from my experience and from my research, it just seems that there is a spectrum. And I've heard schizophrenia has been described in thirds. One third may have one episode with symptoms, psychotic symptoms, and never experience it again. The second half or the second third or individuals sounds like what you described with your mother, definitely what I experienced with my mother, being in and out of mental health institutions, perhaps for the rest of their lives. And then the third set of those who are experiencing symptoms with schizophrenia are unsheltered, untreated, unsheltered, and likely to die at the hands of someone else or taking their own lives, dying by suicide. So, with this whole spectrum of people who may be able to manage the symptoms, the hallucinations and delusions, because they can be devastating to witness
Yeah,
a person in that moment and doing their best to fight against, you know, what they believe is happening at that very moment, what
right.
is being said to them in that very moment, versus someone who is saying schizophrenia is not scary, it's not dangerous, and having pride, which I commend them on being able to start a business and be able to tell people about their story and just to live a life that, most everyone wants to live, a high quality of life, being able to work, being able to be in the community and manage the symptoms.
Exactly.
Unfortunately, a lot of people aren't able to manage the system,
Right.
manage the symptoms, and manage social engagement.
Exactly.
What's your take on that?
Goodness. I feel if there were more effective programs that aren't so black and white, I feel it's always
Mm.
a blanket cover solution to all of them. And I've seen a lot in LA. The treatment of it is usually criminalize them,
Mm.
incarcerate them, and I feel there's not enough um, of a approach to it that is case by case basis. And I feel if you work at that, you understand that, and you allow not politics or bureaucracy affect and impact or have their hand in it, it could be a lot easier to really advocate that particular person because everyone's symptoms look different and everybody's family dynamic
Mhm.
and support system is different. For me, I see a lot of times when someone is in and out of their right mind and they don't have the capacity to care for themselves or make decisions that are in their best interest. However, you have laws that are in place that protect them, like HIPAA, or hey, they could have the right if they don't want to take their medication to make them better, to make them civil and make them safe to be around. It's up to them. It's nothing we can do unless
Right.
they meet the threshold of a outdated law, right? And that's usually that goes back to the Latimer Petrus Act or the 5150 statute. Either you are a danger to yourself, someone else, or gravely disabled. And to find someone gravely disabled, that's already ambiguous,
Yeah.
right?
Mhm.
So I feel like if we were to have a system in place where you really do allow the caretakers and the loved ones to come in and advocate for them, and tell them, hey, this is what needs to be happening. This is what I've been witnessing. Because I always used to fight against like the psychiatrist there, where my little sister be on holds, and it's an ego trip there, right? And they're telling me like, hey, this is what needs to be done, and I would like literally go back and forth and say, hey, she needs to be conserved. She needs to be in a higher care environment, a facility that has structure, that is locked, where she just can't roam. And I was always disregarded and dismissed. They were the psychiatrists. They went to med school. They have the authority to prescribe, so they know best. And I feel that's not always the case. And I think it a lot of times works against that patient's best interest. And they really aren't able to get that type of help because, again, the advocacy with family members and caretakers trying to come in and make decisions aren't really taken serious or
Mm.
taken into consideration.
I appreciate you sharing that perspective. And I know that there are a lot of advocates, many people whose children are living with severe mental illness. It's um, been rare for me to find or communicate with someone else who has a mother, a parent
Yeah.
who currently lives with severe mental illness. Many times people, reflect back, 2020 hindsight. Well, maybe she was dealing with this, that, or the other, but they weren't dealing with those symptoms at the time the person was living.
Right.
So I truly appreciate you being able to share your story in that even though you were in the foster care system from
Yeah.
birth,
Mhm.
you still were able to know and be around your mother in some capacity
Yeah.
for you to have witnessed things. How were you able to be connected with your family while in the system?
So we did this thing called Kin Gap. It's still a form of foster care where we are wards of the state, right? Mom and biological dad doesn't have custody of us, but they put us in the placement of family, right?
Mhm.
And in hopes that, they are with their family, they're with blood relatives, it'll be okay. But a lot of times that isn't always the ideal case. And for
Mhm.
me, it wasn't like my best experiences, but I had a aunt, my mom's her older sister, not her oldest sister, but her and I are very close. She's passed on now, but she always would tell me as a child, she emphasized these girls should always know who their mother is. That is very important. And so I didn't really know how to process a lot of that. I just knew this was my mom. And I kind of, when you're in the home and you haven't been outside and around other people, you normalize what you're brought up in, right? And
Mhm.
and I just kind of thought, oh, okay, that's just mom, right? And everybody regarded my mom like that. That's just Loretta. She talks crazy, yada yada. And um, I was just like, okay, it is what it is. And my aunt, she made it her business to make sure we did see our mom. So she would take us to the facilities, the boarding cares, and the institutions she was in to see her, speak with her. And she knew who we were, and we knew who she was. So throughout that journey, though, it still wasn't like she had a consistent path that she was just getting better. She was getting clean. She was no longer self-medicating. It was kind of up and down. So it was like a roller coaster with her. So I
Mhm.
got to see
Mhm.
and witness her in a lot of different traumatic phases of her illness. Seeing her seeing her have episodes, and seeing the police have to come intervene, seeing her being placed in custody, put on holds, having her write um, us from prison, and um, really just witness all of that. And I didn't really know how to process that until I was a bit older. And when she started coming around more, I found myself embarrassed of her. I was embarrassed of my family dynamic, the story I had. Like, I didn't have a traditional mom that was there, that showed up, that I could go to, that would
Yeah.
help me with prom, all that stuff. That wasn't my reality and stuff. And I think I appreciate my aunt's eagerness to make us feel connected to her and know who she is. I think that's so important. And I think today, where I'm at today, I feel I am grateful to have known my mom and know all these layers and complexities about her and her illness. And I'm grateful because I always tell myself, like, and this gives me peace about the relationship and where we are. She gave me a gift no one else on this earth could ever give me, and that's life.
Mm.
Ever take that away from her. Ever. It was not easy. It's still not easy. Um, when Mother's Day comes around, that's always a hard day to be present in. I always tune out of social media. I don't really get on there. Everybody's celebrating their moms, posting pictures and stuff with her, and that's not really my story. Um, it's always difficult to be in that space. And I kind of always longed after having other maternal figures and all that, but nothing beats having your real biological mom. It just doesn't, right?
Mhm.
And so even this past Mother's Day, I don't really celebrate. When it comes around, it comes around. But I'm not planning this big old brunch and stuff like most daughters would be doing with their moms and stuff. But I was like, you know what? I'm gonna go take her a card. And I was going to head over to the care facility she's currently in. And my older sister had called me and told me that, yeah, she's not actually there. She's placed on another hold again. So I found that out on Mother's Day, and I just been processing it and sitting with it, and learning that she's relapsing and still in and out of the system, and she's almost in her 70s now. It's still disheartening and
Yeah,
stuff. So it's not like I'm just over it. I'm okay. I'm a lawyer now. No, it still impacts and affects me. So
absolutely. So going through school, law school,
yeah.
and now building your career, how do you manage being a caregiver for your sister and building your career?
Wow. Balance, self-preservation, and I had to learn that the difficult way. Really learning you can't pour from a empty glass is so real. When I was going through my process of studying to finish up law school and passing the bar, it was so difficult, and I had to really sacrifice and make a decision. Like, and my therapist would tell me, like, hey, you can't help anyone else until you help yourself. So with my younger sister, like, she was really going through it. The system was just not helping her and to the way she needed it. And it was hard. She was a whole different person. You wouldn't have think she had family. She definitely mirrored a transient roaming around the city. And I can't tell you the amount of times I've called a pet crisis team and gotten her placed on holds and unsuccessfully didn't get her on holds because they felt she didn't meet the criteria. And
Mhm.
it was difficult. So at one point, I remember once I finished law school, I was studying for the bar, and I had to take it more than once. It's, California bar is very difficult. So I had to really choose and compartmentalize. And I had to do a lot of that in law school. And while I was studying for the bar and not focused on my little sister, I had to really put me first. And it was so difficult. I felt so guilty, and because I worried about her,
Yeah.
I
Mhm.
worried about her safety, whether she was alive, whether she was okay. At one point during my bar prep, she went missing for a month. I hadn't heard from her. I hadn't seen her, and I couldn't eat. I couldn't sleep, and it was just so difficult to like focus on the bar exam and these big dreams and stuff I had in front of me, knowing that I don't know what's going on with her. And I remember I was putting up flyers, missing flyers. I did file police reports and stuff. And um, I just, I was like, is everything I'm doing, how can I even enjoy life? And, take the bar exam knowing, I don't know where she's at. I was calling
Yeah.
police stations, jails, hospitals, the morgue, describing Jane Doe's. No family should ever have to go through that. It was difficult. It was difficult. And so I just said a prayer to God, like, God, I don't understand this. I don't understand what you're doing, but please dispatch your angels and let me know everything is okay. I kid you not. Thanksgiving came, and the day after Thanksgiving, I get a call from her. And she's like, "Hey, Leah, um, sorry I missed Thanksgiving yesterday. Can you make me some mac and cheese?" And all I could do is laugh. Like my heart just burst out into laughter. I was not upset that I had been worrying for weeks, passing out flyers. I was going to homeless encampments and speaking to transients and asking, "Have you seen this person?" And all that went out the window. I was just so grateful that she was okay,
Yeah.
alive. I knew where she was. And yes, absolutely, you could have as much mac and cheese as you want.
Yes.
Of course. And I just knew, you know what? After I'm done with this exam, I have to get her the help she needs. I made that oath to myself. So um, when the next bar exam came around, I went ahead and took it. I was still compartmentalizing, and results came out months later in November. And I remember like 3 days before results came out, I got a call from a public defender down at the criminal court in Los Angeles, and she told me, "Hey, I'm here with your little sister. I'm on my way to take her to her arraignment." I'm like, "Arraignment?"
Mm.
I had no idea she was even off the streets and in custody because I had her staying in a boarding carriage because at that point she was no longer safe to be home and be around family because of the episodes and the
Mhm.
non-compliance with her medication and mixing it and self-medicating and stuff. So it just wasn't safe. So that was the best I could do as a, you know, broke post bar law clerk. So I did that. And when I got that call, I talked to the public defender and she asked, "Is anything going on with her? Is something wrong with her?" I said, "Yeah, she actually suffers from severe mental illness." And she's like, "Oh, this makes so much sense. I could tell she
Mm.
cards." So immediately she transfers her case. She's like, "We're going to transfer her case to the mental health court in Hollywood and put her there." I said, "Oh my gosh, thank you." I had been fighting to do that because she was placed on holds, and every time it was time to release her or plan for discharge, the chief psychiatry never wanted to give uh, pursue a conservatorship, which takes time and you have to go through
Yeah.
courts and stuff. They never wanted to do it. They would always say stuff like, "Hey, she doesn't need it. We don't feel she meets the criteria." I'm like, "Hey, she's been hospitalized over 20 times. I don't know what you're not seeing." And they just said, they were so dismissive. "It's okay. We won't do it because we feel she'll be back." And I asked, "You feel she'll be back? What if she's not alive? What if she's not here anymore?"
Yeah.
That doesn't make sense. And I remember reaching out to that chief of psychiatry when she went missing for a month, telling her, "I don't know where she is. I have no idea if she's dead or alive right now. Haven't heard from her, haven't seen her." And all he could offer was his prayers. And I wanted him to feel that because I had been very zealous in my advocacy for her. I was reaching out, writing letters to the chief, to the director of the regional hospital, to the board of supervisors, to senators, to councilmen, everywhere.
Mm.
I'm fighting for my sister's life. And I do not want her to succumb to this mental illness when she doesn't have to. So I did a lot of that. And then she's in custody. She's in this mental health court. And those few days came later, I got my results. that I had
Mhm.
passed the bar exam. And when I tell you just the alignment and timing, because I don't think they took me serious until they saw Esquire behind my name. Now I'm not
Mhm.
just family member trying to get her help and trying to advocate for her. You know, I'm also an attorney. So there must be some weight to what I'm saying. And so the judge that was over her case and the PD, the public defender that was assigned to help her case, was this sharp Black sister, Monique Lee. She was amazing. She understood my frustrations with the system, and she saw before any title, I am a person, a human being,
Mhm. Mhm.
their loved one, and get her the help she needs. And so she really went hard and advocated with me. She could have just helped my little sister get released from custody and go through a diversion program where she's back on the streets, roaming around, doing the same old thing and stuff. But she didn't. She was like, this is about to be a fight and a uphill battle. We're going to get that conservatorship for her. And so I had to take the lesser two evils. I had to make sure she stayed in custody, which was very difficult. I just started practicing, but every weekend I'm visiting her. And it was hard. It was very hard. It was difficult. And so um, I'm grateful that it worked out, but it really took the criminal justice system getting involved to
Yeah.
really make them do something about her. And so we maneuvered and navigated the system that allowed me to get a conservatorship over her in the most unorthodox way. It took a lot. It was a lot of me having weight to my name, me having this title for them to even listen and take it serious. And um, I had to find that balance, but I knew I had to focus on the exam. I had to help myself first. I had to make sure I was in the position to even help her. And it's always that balance you have to find. And I'm just a firm believer in self-preservation. You know, that's the first rule of human nature.
Yeah,
It's a
absolutely.
law we should all abide by. So I knew it hurt and it tugged at me, but I knew big picture, long down the line, I would really be able to help her in the way that she needed. So
Mhm.
um, I was really, really able to advocate, and I'm grateful for that. And the way it played out, while I was in the midst of it, it was hard to be in, to
Absolutely.
see, and deal with, but it was an uphill battle that it was. And now I love having other fellow caretakers or loved ones who are involved with a loved one who suffer from severe mental illness and help them maneuver their way around the system and advocate. Because I just can only think it's so many more of my little sisters.
Mm,
They don't have my advocacy. They don't have an older sister that's an attorney,
right.
that's zealous, that will go above and beyond to make sure she gets the help she wants. And they continue to slip through the cracks. And my little sister would have been a part of that statistic, you know,
Mhm.
had it not been for the zealous advocacy that I was just bent on having and showing. And so um, it's tough. And so I like connecting with other people who are members of NAMI and go to those self support groups and really show them
Mm.
how to like push and maneuver. I remember going to some and it just felt like more of a comfort thing, and nobody could really get me what I needed. I needed her to serve. I needed her to be mandated to take medication, right? And it's cool and all, but I love using my resources and my knowledge and just my live experience with fighting a system like this to allow them to also get that same type of help that they deserve. So
So, what resources you mentioned NAMI, National Alliance on Mental Illness? What other resources have you found to be helpful in your journey of being a caregiver and advocate for your sister and your mother?
getting involved with local politicians that are in the community that are influencing legislation. Um, I feel that's always a way to maneuver because a lot of them are always going up for reelection. They want your
Mm.
vote. They want you to like them. Why not use that to your advantage? So I was like reaching out, finding their emails and tapping in and going within my network and reaching out and letting them know like, hey, this is what's happening. And it puts some pressure on them, like, oh my gosh, right? And then calling, just like the power of calling someone out. Like I think that helps a lot. And then you have to be comfortable with being able to really advocate and know your story is important. I had to do a lot of writing letters and documentation, and I also use a resource. One of I think she was a previous president of the NAMI, the LA chapter. I met her, and her story is a bit different. She's an actual medical doctor at Kaiser, and she had a son that had schizophrenia. So she was a caretaker for her child, right?
Mm-hmm.
And she told me like, yeah, I have a conservatorship. And I was just, how? They're so difficult to get, by the way. They don't, the judge just doesn't give them out. You really have to show cause that this person needs their rights taken away, right? And I didn't understand like why was she able to help her son and have him in a good quality place and he'd be away from substances and all
Yeah.
that stuff. It was just, it felt like it was an inequity in a sense. It was a real health disparity that you see a lot within the system and stuff. And with her, I was very in awe of her story and her being able to help him, but she came from a different type of privilege than me, right?
Mm.
She wasn't a person of color. She's a medical doctor, so she has the resources. And a lot of times I'm learning if you want a good quality um, type of support and help, you have to have money. You do, right? The subsidized program.
That's the danger with Medicaid being at risk. There are so many services that are provided throughout the country, especially for people living with severe mental illness, that can be totally destroyed, eliminated with proposed budgets. So to your point, in writing letters and calling, we need to do that now. Call our senators and let them know that you are telling them to vote no on this bill.
Yeah. Spread the awareness. And they don't know what this looks like in real time and who it affects. Like I'm getting
real people.
Real people. We're not just this number, this article that you come across. This is real life people. And so I did a lot of that. And then I started documenting. I don't know if people still do this. So what I was doing, I took a sheet, a template, and I documented every hospitalization, the date, discharge, the medications, the psychiatrist, the episodes, and I described what was happening in those episodes, the self-medication, all of that. I had it documented down for the past, I want to say 4 to 5 years. So you see this long sheet. And when the judge got it in the mental health court, he said, oh my gosh, this is like a official legalized document. This has been like, it's so much evidence here. This is why she needs, to be conserved. This is why she needs help. This is why she's not okay on her own.
Right. We're fighting against the right to be sick.
Exactly.
The right to be sick. And who wants their loved one to be sick? Who wants to see them suffer so tragically with these symptoms? It's so just heart-wrenching.
It is
sad to witness it in real life, in person. The person is right there in front of you, like fighting something that you and I don't see.
Exactly.
And it's so sad.
It is. So that definitely documenting, and you have this evidence that helps so much with advocacy. So definitely doing those things, like reaching out and putting pressure on them. I was always constantly reaching out to the chief of psychiatry. I got in contact with his boss. I wasn't playing. I'm like, I need you answer to at this
That's
point.
good stuff, man. That's absolutely good stuff. And I was surprised when you reached out to me. What made you reach out to me? I know I do a lot of different posts about it, and again, trying to just amplify information about severe mental illness because it's so lost all the time. But
it is right.
Really surprised when you sent me a message. What made you send me a message?
It absolutely resonated with me. One, like sharing so many commonalities and my intersectionality, being a Black woman who is an attorney and who is a caretaker of a loved one who's dear to them that suffers from severe mental illness, and she's my Sora. Why not? So seeing that transparency, that absolutely resonated, because it was moments when I was in law school and I got calls or I found out this and that was happening. I was just frustrated, but I still had to compartmentalize and, you know, push that away, focus on the work and stuff. But to see someone now, like you've been practicing way longer than I have, and it's still a reoccurring thing. It doesn't go away. It doesn't matter. It is still there and it still impacts. And so seeing that, seeing you let out that type of frustration and also being frustrated with the system, I completely understood. I knew what that message meant. I knew what that post meant. So I just had to say something like, hey, like you are not alone. I get it. I still deal with that today.
Mhm.
And it's very prevalent. And I would love to continue having dialogue and conversations around this and to, you know, make people aware. I think it's very important to have these conversations.
So it sounds like you are building up for some larger platform of advocacy of your own. What project are you working on now?
Right now I am focusing on memoir about my life, me growing up in the system and the things I've been going through and the things that I had to go through on my journey and stuff like that. So I want to be transparent and really share just like a lot of intimate things that I witnessed and I had to see. And I wanted to definitely inspire and heal and really empower like other young ladies or young men who are in the system, who've been through the system, and they really need to understand and know their circumstances and what they're
Mhm.
going into doesn't define them and it doesn't dictate their future. That's
Absolutely.
very, very important to me, very dear to me. And it's my why. So I'm really tapping into that. So I've been going to schools and going to other communities where I am speaking to students and youth and just sharing my story and letting them
Mhm.
know, letting them see what resilience in the flesh looks like and just, you know, let them know like everything you want, if you have vision for it, it can absolutely happen. You have
Yeah.
the power and authority to change your life, and you don't have to succumb to all the circumstances, the chaos, the toxicity, the generational curses, and all that stuff that is around you, you know? So you have it all in you to go further and go beyond that. Uh,
Absolutely.
so those have been my things that I'm definitely working on, and I'm super excited. So
Yeah, well, definitely representation matters. You know, just again, with us both being Black female lawyers and being an image for younger women to see and know that it's possible. Again, both of us having such, you know, extreme upbringings that are totally non-traditional, not having the nuclear family and all the things that we think we need in this country, in this world to be successful, whatever that is, right? But
exactly.
I appreciate you wanting to give back and wanting to help others to know that there is a path forward. And it sounds like faith is
Yeah.
something that's big for you as well. And how do you feel that in going forward with your career and the intersection of your passion, how will they meet? How will they align? Or are they two separate paths?
Can you
Your
elaborate?
your passion to advocate in your career, like right now you're an employment
Yeah.
uh, attorney, and hey, right now I truly appreciate companies that are acknowledging the importance of mental health and wellness and investing in resources for their employees. That is a major shift in my opinion, because there is more discussion, to your point, more dialogue about mental health and wellness. And I was so excited to see NAMI it was a collaboration, but NAMI did a presentation for companies and being able to address a mental health crisis at work, because a mental health crisis can happen anywhere. It can happen to anyone at any given time.
Yes.
So, with your work and being an attorney in employment law, and then your passion for mental health and wellness and helping youth who are coming forward, I see a lot of intersection there and
Yeah.
ways to go forward. But I want to hear from you. How do you see your experience and your career and just the whole career building while caregiving coming together to create even larger advocacy for this country.
Yeah, that's a great point. Me being in corporate, I'm on the defense side. I'm representing companies, corporations, in high stake, litigation
Mhm.
matters. Uh, I feel me bringing my unique voice and my background, my lived experience allows me to really bring insight and enlightening other areas, like other layers that families may go through. Like I do a lot of advice and counsel on employee handbooks. So
Mm,
we focus on, what should be a part of the employment handbook policy, what's included, what time off should be granted, and what does leaves look like? How do you handle stuff like that? And it's so amazing that I'm able to speak up and say, hey, these are also issues that family members
yeah.
may need to, have protections for, to where, they aren't um, having trouble with non-attendance or having to
Mhm.
take off early. It's times I had to leave work early to go deal with my little sister because she was getting in trouble or needed to, be put on a hold. So I'm able to really bring that insight,
I
and
appreciate that.
it's
See,
so
I-
important.
I've seen family attempt to be defined, and that's not the same for everyone.
It's
You
not.
know, like both of us living with other people. And in some cases, I wasn't even living with a blood relative. So for employers trying to define who is an immediate family member for you to have time off to go to their funeral, well, this person who died may be like literally your mother
Exactly.
because your mother was not there. So they can't get, paid bereavement because it's not a blood relative, a blood immediate family member. I think you are in a great unique position, like you said, to expand,
And let's know
definition.
about the terms and not
Yeah,
put everything in this traditional box again of what a
yeah,
nuclear family is. Because what godmama or grandma from the church might have been, that's mom. And
right,
by biology, no, that's not an immediate family member, but that's somebody I feel I should be able to honor and not have any repercussions from my
right.
employer because of that. So I think those things are so important, just bringing that type of insight and enlightenment to these
Mm,
corporate spaces so they do understand, you know what I mean? And it's
mhm,
something worth considering and respecting. So I definitely am planning to, incorporate that intersectionality in what I do. And then my firm, they are great about pro bono work. So if I want to take time and go out and help people, even with conservatorship processes, and
mm,
that I'm still able to do that and be supported and be able to like build that pro bono time and stuff.
mhm,
That's very, very helpful for me. And I'm able to, still help other people. So I feel like it has, in a way, being in a position to be a advocate and be an attorney allows me to use my position and still advocate for the things that are very purpose driven for me and very personal for me. So I definitely take advantage of that, and I want to do more of that for sure. So
absolutely. Well, I truly commend you, Attorney Wilkins, in already developing your path. There's so many things that you and I will continue to talk about beyond this conversation, and I hope to be able to continue to share and talk with you and build in trying to create more awareness. Again, this month celebrating May as National Mental Health Awareness Month and also National Foster Care Awareness Month, and celebrating the day, World Schizophrenia Day. There are
yes,
so many layers to schizophrenia, and I truly appreciate people who are able to live the highest quality of life possible. I know that that's something that was basically my goal for my mother. I had to resolve in myself that this is a lifetime commitment,
it
right?
is.
I'm her only child, and I just want her to be safe. I want her to be able to to live the most healthy, productive life possible in managing the symptoms, even when she doesn't want to take the medication. So a lot of families are advocating for their loved ones, not just during this month, but every day of the year. And
Yes.
like mental illness, it can impact families. I call it's a global 365 issue.
Yes,
And
it is.
we need to treat it that way. So you mentioned earlier, basically, like we can't have a cookie cutter approach to, helping someone with severe mental illness. What, if you had your ideal situation, what do you feel would be the best approach? You mentioned before about, individualized, basically case by case, but what does that really look like?
Okay, so I feel if you have a loved one that's suffering from a severe mental illness, the family are the witnesses to this, right? When you put on a hold, it's only what, a few hours, maybe 72, 3, 4 days, right? They only get that glimpse. And then during that time, they could calm down and be on their best behavior. But us, we are around these loved ones all the time. So we get to really attest to what's going on. I feel from the start, from the incept of it, psychiatrists, social workers, caseworkers, those who are in place to really do their work and make a difference for that patient's health and well-being, they need to take heed of what the family members are saying and not
Mhm.
be dismissive, and get an understanding what's going on. What does this look like? And be very collaborative in this
Mhm.
approach. It takes us all. It really does take the village to help get them the help they need. And so with that, like if you're taking something serious, I'm saying, hey, this person is doing this, they're self-medicating, they're not complying with the meds, yeah, they're getting injections, but it's, countering with the street drugs and stuff, so it's not really working. The pills are making them even more agitated, and it's just
Mhm.
not a balance. And they take heed of this stuff, and we start approaching it with tough love. I feel when a person who has mental illness is in that state, they don't have the capacity or the comprehension of, oh my gosh, I'm not taking care of myself. They don't have the ability to. So let's treat it with common sense. And a lot of times, these problematic laws are in place that allows them to have all their rights and exercise their rights and be psychotic and have these breaks, and they don't have to be forced to take any medication. And I think that's a problem. It starts there. So if we see it like from the onset, like, okay, this person is exhibiting psychotic side effects and stuff like that, and personality traits, let's treat them with the medication. Let's not wait till this gets the worst or becomes the worst. And that's usually a lot of times what happens. So if we could start really addressing this from the head, like I would mandate the medication that they don't want to take. They don't think anything is wrong with them. And that's the thing. A lot of times patients, they don't have insight into their illness of how they
Anosognosia.
right.
A
That
word that I have butchered before, but
yes,
anosognosia,
yes,
lack of insight.
right into your illness. Because
Yeah.
the longest I think it took my mom decades before she finally calmed down, because she was, whew, yeah, it was a lot in and out, and just so many episodes, all the stuff that she's done. I don't think at that time she had the insight. Now at almost 70, she understands, hey, I have to be on my medication so I'm not agitated. So I don't hear the voices. So I don't feel paranoid. So I don't feel that my neighbor looking at me, that doesn't mean he wants to kill me, or there's
Mhm.
bodies buried under the bed. I used to hear that all the time growing up, by the way. So this is the stuff she would say. But I feel it took time, it took decades, and it doesn't have to be the case now. Because with my little sister situation, I felt it was like immediate action and them taking serious and not dismissing me and saying, oh, next time, next time. I feel the prognosis would have been a bit better, right?
Mhm.
Because when you're dealing with schizophrenia or schizoaffective, that's a chemical imbalance. Your brain, all that is deteriorating, right? And the medication, it doesn't cure it, it just slows it down, right? If
Mhm.
you mandated to be on that from the outset, it could have really helped a lot. And that wasn't the case. And so I feel when her treatment team has more of a collaborative approach and includes family. Because a lot of times, I said she's mad at me because I have her here. I'm the reason why she's on the hold.
Right.
I'm the reason why they won't let her go. And so in her mind, oh, let me weaponize this HIPAA law. I don't want her to know any information. You can't talk to her about what's going on. And that does a disservice to both of us. One, I can't help her legally. That's in the way. And two, she's advocating for herself while she's mentally ill. Who is that helping? And I just feel like psychiatrists understood that. The social workers understood that. The case managers understood that. And they did nothing about that. They didn't try to encourage her to talk to me or to, sign release for me to know information. It
Yeah.
was so divisive. It was no collaboration at all. And I feel if you do that and assess like what this particular patient needs specifically, I think it'll be so much easier and better. And you will see them not succumbing to this illness. Like real talk. Like if
Mhm.
you really do take that approach. And then not to mention there's a lot of outdated legislation that needs to be reformed. It does. And I feel people who are making these laws, the lawmakers and stuff, should either know people personally or have some sort of lived experience with
Yeah.
what they actually need. And
And
it's
some of them do. Some of them do and have been speaking out. I guess like we need them to be a little bit louder. They've created a caucus, a mental health caucus, and uh, it is important to continue to amplify the significance of severe mental illness. And I mean, even when my time with the federal government, I was so excited to be a part of the interdepartmental serious, wait, let me see, ISMIC, Interdepartmental Serious Mental Illness Coordinating Committee. And it requires by law for about 12 federal agencies to be at the table, as well as community members throughout the country to be at the table to discuss employment, housing, barriers to quality of life for people with severe mental illness. And it's a matter of what is done with that information, right? There's a lot of different information, a lot of resources. But if resources are dependent on grants and grants can be canceled, those resources aren't there anymore.
Exactly.
And so it's important for us to continue to work boots on the ground, grassroots efforts, because politicians, elected officials, they can not be politicians anymore or elected officials, but who will always be there. And I'm a former elected official, but what has not changed is my advocacy. So whether I'm elected or not, the advocacy is still there. And that's why it's important for us to have the grassroots campaigns, solid and collaborative, as you say, and working with those who are in our local communities, including police.
Right.
It is so helpful, so refreshing when there is crisis intervention training that takes place with law enforcement, and that those are the people who go out to assess the scene. And I'm speaking from my recent experience just in the last 2 weeks, right?
Wow.
We have to build the relationships with community organizations because they are the ones who are likely going to be called if your loved one is having an episode in public somewhere, someone doesn't understand or someone's calling. But to your point, and overall, it's just safety.
Yes.
Because when a person is not taking any medication, you cannot manage psychotic symptoms on your own.
Can't.
I have gone through so many derivatives of prayer for my mother.
Wow.
And I had to just understand that some part of this is also her wanting, if she could want to have control of the symptoms.
Right.
But looking at it from her perspective is dealing with all of the side effects. And maybe it's not worth trying to take the medicine for the symptoms because the side effects are so horrible. So as I'm growing in this whole journey, now 51 and been dealing with this since around 14 years old, it's a lot.
It is.
And we just have to continue to learn. And as long as we're willing to stay in the fight, stay in the game,
Yes.
to understand the significance of our self-care.
Yes.
So as you talked today and described so many things, there was so many times that I thought of BB Moore Campbell, who I will celebrate in July, but I do all the time. But you being in LA,
Yes.
knowing the significance of NAMI in LA,
Yeah.
and her bringing that to LA, because when she had her time with her loved one, resources weren't available in the community where she lived. She had to go outside of her community.
Yeah.
And knowing what you and I know now, we all need it.
Absolutely.
This is not a black or white thing. As I said, 365 global issue. It does not discriminate. So socioeconomic economic status, race, religion, age doesn't matter.
That's
and
right.
So we need the resources in all of our communities.
Absolutely.
And I appreciate you using your voice.
Yes.
Because that is a resource for someone else who doesn't even know what they're witnessing in their household.
Absolutely.
And can't describe it.
Yeah. You mentioned something interesting, the first responders.
Mm-hmm.
I can't tell you how many people don't understand how important that is. Goodness gracious. That was one of my difficulties I would have. Contingent upon the personality and the care and the grace of whoever that first responder was that came out when I needed her to be placed on a hold. That was pretty much the result. If they didn't care, okay, there's nothing we could do. And I feel that is so monumental. Like the training is so important, and not just on what to do, how to diffuse the crisis and how to make sure everyone's safe and stuff like that. But you really have to teach enlightening them what empathy means.
Oh, absolutely. And NAMI does a great job with that. If you ever have the opportunity to participate, I know back home in Stark County, the law enforcement organizations there throughout the county collaborate with NAMI. And I have gone and participated, but family members go out and share their stories. It helps to build the empathy. It helps to build the understanding. So while you have this textbook training, you also are hearing real life stories of people that you may encounter in real life. And you're hearing from their loved ones the behavior that you might see. So maybe it's behavior that makes you immediately put your hand on your weapon. You know that there's another way that you can also try other non-violent or non-lethal ways to address this person.
Exactly.
And so I love NAMI. And I must say, again, with May being National Mental Health Awareness Month, NAMI started with mothers, sitting at a kitchen table, mothers who were challenged and criticized for being bad mothers because they had sons who lived with schizophrenia, and they were blamed as bad mothers. So as we think about Mother's Day, we want to celebrate the mothers who have done all that they can. And even I had to change my narrative about my own mother and saying she did all she could while she could in the past tense. No, it's present. She's still today, through the symptoms, through the difficulties, through the manic episodes. She does what she can. She does what she can.
Absolutely.
And I appreciate the mothers who do what they can in the best way that they know how.
Yes, absolutely.
And ultimately, all of the people who filled the gaps in my life, who filled the gaps in your life, to help us to be on a path to become lawyers and to be able to give back. Absolutely. I feel like it's my journey and that God has blessed me with all that I've been able to accomplish in my career, because if I had not, I would not be able to support my mother and help navigate through these treacherous waters that we call the mental health care system or the criminal justice system, right? So we're feeling a purpose. in helping the quality of life of other people, and not only our mothers, but our willingness to share can help even more people.
Absolutely. I totally agree with you. That is very, very important.
Well,
Wow.
Sallia, it's been so wonderful having this conversation with you. I would love for you to just drop some gems, maybe your top 3 things that you want to leave people with for this month of May, and recognizing mental health awareness as well as foster care awareness. What would you love to share and leave with our audience today?
Um, be kind. I think kindness goes a long way. You
Yeah.
never know what that person is dealing with internally, or what they're battling, or what they're going through, what type of day they had. And just, it's all so much going on in May. Mother's Day happens to fall in a day. I mean, yeah, it falls on a month that is mental health awareness and foster youth. Um, I think kindness goes a long way, and check in on folks. I think that is so important, to just show up, show grace, and be present in those spaces. And let's not put all things in a box. What my Mother's Day looks like and what yours looks like and feels like may not be the traditional sense. So I always just tap in and check on people that I know, who've always kind of either been motherless or felt motherless, or their moms have gone on and passed away. Um, I try to be very graceful and um, check in, especially on, on people I love and stuff like that. And always just take some time and breathe, take a moment, take a self-care day. I think that's so important. I did one yesterday. It was amazing. Spend some time with yourself and doing something good and making you feel better. The trauma, all that stuff is always going to be there, but it's so important to be intentional and take time out for yourself, to just, even if you want to lay in bed to 12 and watch freaking Netflix or binge watch something, it's okay.
Forever. That is such a good series. And they normalize the discussion of mental health, and I love it. I've been posting about it.
Come on, right? So
Yes.
I love it. I love it.
Yes.
Yeah, our source, she's actually the creator of it. But yeah, I think those things are so, so important. And you got to take care of yourself, because
Absolutely.
again, if you're depleted, if you're empty, you can't keep the advocacy and the the um the real drive and all that going. So definitely take time and pour into yourself, and just know your limitations too. What triggers you. Spend a lot of time off of social media when I know I'm in a space where I'm like hypersensitive to stuff, or stuff I don't really want to, see.
Mhm.
I filter out. What am I letting in? Who am I around? What am I listening to? All those things. I think that's so important. You really just got to take care of yourself and stuff. So take care of yourself, yourself, your strength, all that will take care of you ultimately. So, yeah.
Thank you so much for joining Corey Empowers for Mental Wealth Wednesday. Attorney Sallia R. Wilkins, it has been an absolute pleasure to have you on as a guest.
Thank you.
Thank you for sharing your personal story, your journey, your experience, your lived experience, and giving such wonderful advice for families and friends who may have a loved one living with severe mental illness. May is National Mental Health Awareness Month, and let me get the name right. Say for the foster care, is it?
Yeah, National Foster Care Awareness Month.
Okay, National Foster Care Awareness Month. We're also celebrating during this month World Schizophrenia Day, and of course, Mother's Day.
Yeah.
So may your May be full and bright as we move on into June and have another strong guest for Mental Wealth Wednesday. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me, Corey. Thank you.
Okay, it ended.
Okay.
Not yet.